So in today's episode, we're going to discuss the concept of balance and why it's a myth and why I personally think it's bullshit.
Holla, holla, HP.
Wait, you stealing my stuff. Holla, holla.
Oh, that's why that came out so effortlessly.
Uh-huh.
I am Sam.
And I am Harold.
HP in his house. That's what I want to say.
I like it.
So today on this episode of the Freedom Parent Podcast.
Today is the day.
That we talk about.
The concept of balance.
And this is how you know someone has been married a super long time, when they can complete sentences broken together and make it make sense. I'm so proud of us. That was really nice right there, what you just did. It's kind of cool.
Pat yourself on the back.
You know, it's always nice when things come together. So yeah, we've been entrepreneurs, couplepreneurs.
Yeah.
For a really, 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 really long time. Oh my gosh. How long is it? I was 26 when we opened our gym, and I'm 40.
40.
Did I just admit that?
40 and 5.
There we go. Thank you for redeeming that. So, gosh, I love this topic, and I love that you brought it up, that balance is a myth when running to greatness.
Well, actually, I heard it on a podcast that I listened to, and I was like, it might as well be coming out of my mouth. Like it was, everything they were saying was just coming. It was like it was coming out of my brain. It was like every the way they were saying it. So I actually
great minds think alike.
Yeah. I guess so. Now I'm thinking he cusses a lot more than me, but
some people are known for
we'll
that.
PG it as much as we can, but no, it really motivated me, and I just it put me in a space or a place where, to your point, that's where we were coming up, and looking at today. The narrative that's behind the concept of balance is a whole different thing, and it's a myth, and it's lie, and it's they're full of crap.
Yep. And I think actually, if you put yourself in the place where you're chasing this myth of balance, ultimately it leaves people, it did us for a season, of being very dissatisfied in all areas of life. Yeah. Because nothing ever gets a chance to actually grow.
Right.
I read years ago this great book. It's one of my foundational books that I recommend to all people. And it's called The One Thing by Gary Keller, one of the founders of Keller Williams. Great book, short read too. So for people that are just getting into reading, it's a very easy read. Or just find an Audible, whatever you prefer. But there was specifically this one concept in there, and several things. I got so much value from it. But this one concept in there rocked my world. And it was like, all right, the gloves are off. We're going. Like, game on. I'm ready to work now. Mm-hmm. Because he called it working in counterbalance.
Yep.
And
I first learned that term from Stephen Covey.
Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
See, there's no original
To
idea.
the last talk we did, there's no original idea.
Yeah, that's so funny. So, just to kind of like quickly sum this up, but he talked about how in specific times of his life, when he decided on a main focus, a main goal, it didn't mean that it took up his whole life, but it took up a lot of his life. Say growing business, that took up most of his time and day. He still made time for health. He still made time for his family. Yeah. But it also meant that maybe there wasn't much else outside of that. And that gave me so much freedom, because I thought for most of our entrepreneurial life together, for the first part of it, that I needed to work just a specific amount of hours. If I wasn't working a 9 to 5 or whatever, like most people, then I was working too much, right? Yeah. Or if you worked out, this little bit of time, that was just right. But anything over an hour or anything under 45 minutes wasn't enough.
Well, because that was through the lens of a traditional sense of balance. And I get that. Like in the traditional sense of balance, or the definition of it, I guess, would be what it used to be was you got a morning routine. You wake up in the morning, you get your kids off to school, you go to work, you do your thing, you hit the gym, whatever, you come home, you have family time, you have dinner, you go to bed, right? All that traditional sense, that's balance, right? Mm-hmm. And that's good. And it's great to strive for. And, in some capacity, I mean, you're only going to get so much out of operating in that world. But for some reason now it's switched to, I hear people, I just want to vomit when I hear the way that they try and paint the narrative of the word balance. It's like a crutch now. It's like a reason why they're not doing what they need to be doing. Mm-hmm. Right? It's because I got balance in my life.
Because you got to have balance.
Yeah, exactly.
What does that mean? What does that even mean?
Right.
If they defined it like.
It's because it's an excuse for them to give up on their plan because they have a weak moment. It could be in their fitness and health. Oh, well, I ate five days. I did what I was supposed to do to stick to my plan, but now I'm going to have these French fries and nachos. #balance. It's like, no, that's not freaking balance. It's because you had a weak moment and you abandoned your plan. Like it's just becomes a crutch. So it's just, that's that versus the traditional way of looking at it.
That's so good. It's like the false idea of perfection, which is really just a human ideal of perception of the way they think things should be. Like nachos aren't balanced. Who said nachos are balanced?
Right.
Where do we even come up with this stuff? Right. And really, do you feel like it's actually, we're just trying to find ways to protect why we can't?
Right.
Or protect our excuses, maybe.
Yeah. You look at it in two ways. And I think you can look at it through balance through day to day, or you can look at it through a course of a life. And I think when we started looking at it through the course of a life, for instance, work hard for 3 to 5 years, there's not going to be much balance in there because you're super, I'm going to use the word obsessed. It's not a negative way, not a negative word, depending on what you're obsessed with. I'm obsessed with my wife and my family. It's not a bad thing, but I know some people turned off when I use that word obsessed because of their concepts around it.
Some people are turned off when you use the word challenge, apparently. We took a survey recently, like, what? That's a great word.
Yeah. Well, those are the people who are offended because it's cloudy or something too. But anyway, I digress. So it's when you adopt that mindset of looking at it through the course of a life. So you're obsessed for, say, 4 or 5 years on a goal, on a plan, and you're running hard at 90% of the time or 95% of the time. And then say you fulfill something, say you're running hard in that 5 years and you have like 90 days of like, you're really focused on completing a project or getting a big rock in your schedule completed. Well, then you have that 5% of balance because you deserved it. You actually did something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But the challenge is most people run 80% of the time. They look at it day to day and they run hard for a day and then balance the next day or that evening. And they run hard for 80% of the time and they're really running hard. They're really working hard, but they work off of more of an 80-20 type of run. And they just don't understand why 3 years later, it's Groundhog's Day for them. And we see it because we speak with thousands and thousands of people over through our career. So this is not a myth. This is what we see. And it's unfortunate because they're just going to be running 80% of the time, working so hard. They really are. They're working so hard, but it's the wrong ratio. And they'll be doing it till they're 70, 75 years old.
Yeah.
Because they just can't suck it up enough to say, I'm not entitled to balance right now because my goals won't allow it. There's no balance when you're running to greatness. When you're looking to create something phenomenal, there's no time for balance. And the guy who was on the podcast he used for an example, he was like, look at Jeff Bezos, someone you talk about, built something extraordinary. I don't think balance was in his vocabulary. You look at Kobe Bryant when he got up at 3 a.m, he was like, what the podcaster was saying, I don't think he was thinking about balance when he was shooting free throws at 3 a.m. You look at Elon Musk and he was sleeping in his office. I heard him in the podcast earlier, or an interview actually on a TED Talk or something. He was being interviewed and they're like, a lot of people was worried about him being burnt out. We used to get that too. Remember that? Oh, you're going to get
Yep.
burnt
Oh,
out.
yeah.
Y'all going to get burnt out.
Oh, we think you're working too much. You're always on your computer.
You're always on your phone.
You never watch TV anymore.
You're always gathering people. Well, you know, Elon, but in this interview, Elon heard the same thing. And it was like, oh, you're going to burn out, or I don't think this is healthy for your mind. I don't think this is healthy. And he paused in his way and he was just like, but it's what had to be done to build what I built.
Well, when, case in point, when you're running to greatness, some things have to go. Like you have to, because of working in that counterbalance versus, finding a rhythm that works for the pace of life that you're setting. So ultimately, I think a lot of people don't realize, like I've got all my points here. I'm going to lose it, I think. But
you got this.
I think what people don't realize is that when you're really running towards success, those people don't have the goal of living their entire life like that. Usually.
No, you're going to get a lot of balance when you run hard for 5 years.
Yes, you get so much freedom. That's what they're focusing on. They don't see it as balance,
though, because it's just part of their life.
They
deserve
don't think
it.
It's
they know
even
they
wrong.
deserve the vacation because they work their asses off for an extended period of time. That 5% of, if you want to call it balance, it's 5% that they took a 2-week vacation in Cabo.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not balanced to them. They don't even see that as balance. It's just, it's deserved and it's infused into their life.
Yep.
And how they operate.
So there's that.
So it's looking at it from a day-to-day versus a course of a life.
Knowing that you're going to make the hard push. You're making a hard push to gain greater freedom, flexibility, experiences that if you don't make that push, you won't have. And that also, so that when you get there, you have the freedom to discern and decide what is going to be the normal operating pace in your life.
Right.
You know, when you're not in a push season or when you're deciding the next step of actions, like what is the normal operating pace? And because we've made those pushes several years ago now, we do have the ability, like we don't have to do this podcast out of obligation. It is not mandatory. It is an optional thing.
Yeah.
It is a very intentional decision that we felt meets our creative desire right now. And we can execute on this, you know? So we're able, because of those pushes, and so are so many other highly, highly successful people, are able to say, I'm going to make this really intense push right now. And there's not going to be a lot else that's going to fit in outside of work, health, family, God. But what's going to happen at the end of the road is I'm going to have a whole lot of freedom and flexibility because of this. And then there's the other thing that comes from that decision is you have to start deciding what is a must for you to do, right? Like, is it a must for me to clean my house? Is it a must for me to do my groceries? Like, is it a must for me to answer my emails? Like, there's going to be these people that are you're going to get to a point, because you will get burnt out if you try to do everything by yourself all the time instead of step by step, not all at once. Of course, you have to make sure that your income allows you to start outsourcing or you're creating the ability to do that, right? But I remember there was this one point before the grocery shopping apps were all the thing. They were still kind of new. And you were joking and you were just like, and now she's ordering our groceries and have them delivered. And someone said, oh, now, like, seriously, like, that's gone too far now. Seriously. You can't do your own groceries, Samantha? And I was hurt. I was hurt at first. And then I was just like, you know, this person doesn't get me. This person doesn't understand what we're building.
Right.
This person doesn't understand that I want to help other people. When I order those groceries, or when we hire someone to clean our house, or when we're outsourcing other things because there's people that are better suited to do it than us, we get more freedom. So when you're working in that counterbalance, it allows you to have the monomaniacal focus you need on your business, your family, and your health, the key rocks, those big rocks, and push forward while also blessing other people. You have the ability, when you decide that you're not going to chase the myth of balance, you're not just living for yourself, you're creating abundance and opportunities and blessings for other people too.
Yes. Yes. And it's a conversation you're going to have with your family too, if you're running for greatness, because I know some of you, I'm already going to I love overcoming objections before they become objections. And we teach this with our team, but some of you are sitting there already and thinking, yeah, I can't I can't go 98% hard for 4 or 5 years. My husband's not on board, or she's not on board, or whatever. And yeah, you got to have a conversation. You got to get the team on board. Like, we got our kids on board. Remember, we had these conversations. They were so young, they really didn't get it. But we brought them in, and today they just know, and they're just part of the team.
Well, our oldest now, actually, in perspective, she can kind of pull things together, and it's sweet to hear her talk about us in a way of, she has conversations now at a higher level with her friends. They're older, and there's some comparison that happens, and she will occasionally come home and say, I'm so thankful that you and Dad have a great relationship. Like, I'm so grateful that you guys have learned how to work together. Like, so she notices things about that now. When, had there been moments in the past where maybe she felt like we also were working a lot or whatever, or maybe she didn't understand fully. But of course, when we moved here to Arizona, some things started making sense. When we started taking more vacations together, things started making sense.
Yeah, you have to, momentum. I mean, I love that word, because it takes a lot of energy and effort to create momentum. But once you create the momentum, that's when results are on the other side of that. So that's why we're big fans of, like, pushing hard. We could say 90-day blitzes. That's when you're just really, I'll use the word obsessed again, really focused on moving a big project or something forward. And it's a 90-day push. Now, you may not complete it in 90 days, but if you're exerting that much energy that you should be to create the momentum, in 90 days, you're probably going to get a little tired. So you're probably going to have to throw in 5% of balance in there. You're probably going to have to take a day or two to unplug, unwind, have a little fun. You deserved it. Now, go push and complete the project type of thing. But see, I'm working with a coach right now, to your point earlier. You said, like hiring things out, tasks and different things. You were talking about outsourcing. And that's because, like, the coach I'm working with yesterday, he was talking about, he wants us staying in our genius. He wants us staying in our talent. He wants us to identify clearly what our talent is. Because when you're working in your talent, you really shouldn't get tired. I mean, it's going to be harder for you to get tired, because you're not having to. Because you enjoy
it. It comes.
You enjoy it. It's a different energy source. It's coming from a different energy source. So to go grocery shopping, why would, and this isn't to belittle anything, this is just numbers don't lie, but why would I go for your grocery store? Why would I go spend 2 hours at the grocery between driving and doing it, when I could pay someone an hourly wage? And you look at our hourly wage and what we earn, it's just math. Yeah. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And I mean, I can select everything I want, and someone just has to pick it up for me. Yeah. And then I bless them by giving them
pick my own,
the best
because
tip that I can give them.
They don't know what they're doing sometimes.
I have to say, we've got some really great shoppers.
They're doing all right. They need to tighten up a little bit. Excellence. But no. Yeah. So you really only have two choices. You can view it as a course of a life and push hard for 3, 4, 5+ years. Really, really hard. Now, I'm not saying once that you kick off, you can do what you want. I'm not saying it's just over at that point, but you've created a lot of momentum at that 4 or 5 year mark. If you're really pushing at 90%, you have that choice, and then you'll have all the balance in your life of what you want. Or you can continue to look at it day by day, because you're entitled to some balance, and you're weak in a moment, and you need balance to come in and save the day. And you'll continue to get, year after year, a mediocre life that's probably unfulfilling, right? You're probably going to be frustrated because you are working really, really hard 80% of the time. You really are. I don't doubt you in that. I see it all the time. But you're going to be in the same place running till you're 70, 75 years old. We see it in the majority of America. And
to your point of the sprint, in a sprint, in a hard push, in a counterbalance type of work frame, you should be doing all the things that you typically don't do, but you need to do. And that requires a lot of energy and effort. It requires getting tired. It's like working out. When you work out, you train your muscles, you run, you cycle, yoga, Pilates, whatever your thing is, right?
Mm-hmm.
That initially during the training.
It's none of those, by the way.
Huh?
You said whatever your thing is. I know you're talking to the audience. I'm just joking. It's not yoga, cycling.
We are getting older. So you get tired. You get tired when you push your body. You get tired when you push your mind. With that comes the reward, though. I mean, you can also be very tired protecting your quote unquote balance. You can be very disappointed with that too. And unfortunately, to your point of being 75 and surprised that nothing has actually changed. So I would rather get tired and exhaust my energy and my time and my talent creating something that is remarkable.
Right. Something that's great. Something you were, becoming the best version of yourself, creating that just amazing life that blesses other people in the process too. The concept of balance is a myth.
Yeah.
Is that's the moral of the story?
Make the push. Work hard. You can do it.
You can do it.
You can do it.
We're going to get sued by Nike because I think we say that all the time. You can do it. Just do it.
Everyone
just do
says that. I don't think again.
All right. That's a wrap.
All right. That's a wrap. Till next time.